Gregor Mendel, known as the father of modern genetics, was born in Austria in 1822. As a monk, he discovered the basic principles of heredity through experiments in his monastery's garden. His experiments showed that the inheritance of certain traits in pea plants follow particular patterns, subsequently becoming the foundation of modern genetics and leading to the study of heredity. A number of hypotheses were suggested to explain it, but Gregor Mendel was the only one who got it more or less right. His ideas have been published in 1866, but largely went unrecognized until the 1900s, which was long after his death. While Mendel's research was with plants, he also discovered that this applies to people and other animals because the mechanisms of heredity are essentially the same for all complex life forms.
In 1956, I began my experiments on plant hybridization with garden peas in the monastery garden. This is how I achieved what my predecessors could not. First of all, I concentrated my attention on a single character in my own experiments on inheritance. Secondly, I kept accurate pedigree records for each plant. And third, I counted the different kinds of plants resulting from each cross. Fourthly, I analyzed my data mathematically. In monohybrid cross, I crossed varieties of edible peas which showed clear-cut differences in morphological characters. I was dusting the pollen of one variety on the pistil of the other, to prevent self-pollination of the female parent. I removed its stamens before the flowers had opened and shed the pollen. After making the cross, I would enclose the flowers in bags to protect them from insects and foreign pollen. My first experiments explain how a single gene segregates in inheritance. When I cross a true breeding tall plant with a true breeding plant of the dwarf variety, I got tall plants like one parent in the first filial generation designated F1. I used the term dominant for the tall character, which dominated the F1 generation, and recessive for the character of dwarfness, which remained hidden in the F1 generation. Self-fertilization of the F1 hybrids produced the second filial generation, F2, consisting of a total of 1,064 plants, of which 787 were tall and 277 were dwarf. That is, tall and dwarf plants appeared in the F2 in the proportion of 2.84 to the 1, which is roughly equal to the ratio of 3 to 1.
Present genetic is based on Mendel's principle when he decided to investigate the peas. The first principle says that parents inherit their genes to offspring, which are their sons or their daughters. The second one says that alleles can be recessive or dominant. The third principle says that each mature adult has two genes, copies from their parents, that are segregated when gametes are formed. Fourth law says that alleles are segregated independently.
Gregor Mendel, through his work on pea plants, discovered the fundamental laws of inheritance. He deduced that genes come in pairs and are inherited as distinct units, one from each parent. Mendel tracked the segregation of parental genes and their appearance in the offspring as dominant or recessive traits. He recognized the mathematical patterns of inheritance from one generation to the next. One of his most famous quotes was, "My scientific studies have afforded my great gratification, and I am convinced that it will not be long before the whole world acknowledges the results of my work."
Each scientist is almost always inspired in earlier work. Mendel's influences and inspirations came from his early school days in which he was taught about hybridization and breeding. Both of these topics are related to the study of genetics, which we all know Mendel got a chance to study with the help of peas. Mendel attended the University of Olomouc and was probably influenced by a teacher that was interested in hereditary traits named Karl Nestler. Nestler emphasized the importance of selective breeding in order to see specific traits, which is something that can be seen throughout Mendel's work. The difference is that Mendel explained how these traits could be controlled and why.
So after Mendel's discoveries, the Punnett scores were created in order to know how genes pass through generations. So it works if we have a dominant gene, and let's pretend we have a recessive gene here, and a dominant and a recessive. Here we have it from the father, and here 4 from the mother. It doesn't matter where you put it, but then you gotta combine the letters. If you have dominant and dominant, then this is where it will be dominant. Here we have dominant and recessive, so always putting the dominant gene first. Here we have dominant and recessive, and here we have 2 recessive. So the ratio will be 3 to 1, because we have 3 dominant traits and 1 recessive.
So kind as to fall in love with me. You see, I'm trying. I know you know that I like you, but that's not enough. So if you will, please fall in love. I think it's only fair. There's gotta be some butterflies somewhere I wanna share, 'cause I like you.